20. $20 exchanged at Cup Foods at 8:01 p.m. in Minneapolis, Minnesota. 7. It took 7 minutes for police officers to arrive.
Stay in the car. Let me see your other hand. I'm sorry.
3. That's how many more minutes passed before disgraced officer Derek Chauvin arrived. 20. The number of times he said, "I can't breathe."
Please, please let me stand. No, please, man, I can't breathe.
It was reminiscent of the helpless pleas we heard in the 2014 killing of Eric Garner.
I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
17. It's the number of complaints Derek Chauvin had against him before killing this man. 9. 9 minutes and 29 seconds later, he took his last breath. 25. That was the day in May of 2020 when this man, whose name we have all heard by now, George Floyd, was murdered by Derek Chauvin as 3 other officers watched. It became the 9 minutes and 29 seconds seen around the world, uncovering the police violence and brutality that is most often acknowledged and accepted in the Black community, but generally ignored by so many others. This time was different. There was no justification, and there was no way for the world to turn a blind eye. Unlike too many other instances, these officers were charged and convicted, and we learned more about George Floyd's death than we ever knew about his life. So on the 2nd anniversary of his death, I want us to know more about the man who became a martyr, and he didn't even choose that destiny. Born in Fayetteville, North Carolina, on October 14, 1973, George moved to Houston, Texas when he was 2 and grew up in the Tray, Houston's 3rd Ward. A star basketball and football player in high school, George Floyd received a basketball scholarship to play at South Florida Community College and later a football scholarship at Texas A&M Kingsville. A tale familiar to many of us, sports for George intersected with hip-hop. He was known as Big Floyd to some in Houston because he also made regular appearances on DJ Screw's mixtapes in the 90s. As we all watched the chilling video of George's death on Memorial Day 2020, the outcry of injustice was loud. It was swift, it was international. It was longer lasting than what we are accustomed to seeing, and it was economic. $50 billion was the amount committed by America's largest corporations for racial justice efforts. But 2 years after these pledges, what do racial justice efforts have to show for the investment? Those efforts were in large part because of the activism and leadership of the players, with WNBA players leading the way, some even sitting out the 2020 season to focus on social justice efforts. While there is a lot left for corporations and sports leagues to do, including making annual commitments to fight racial injustice, oppression, and white supremacy that too often ends in death, one thing is clear: we would not be here without the traumatic killing of George Floyd. His sacrifice, losing his life, means Black Lives Matter is no longer an argument. It is a goal to reach and a statement of fact.
Daddy changed the world.
For the Gianna Floyds all over the globe, many who we cannot name, let's ensure that her observation from 2020 remains our truth forever. Because his living was not in vain, we must ensure his death was not either.